Did you hear that everybody was just dumbfounded that I said Cody Rhodes and Anthony Ogogo was the best match on the pay-per-view? People were just dumbfounded about that.
I was surprised by that, and I will say, and I know it's not the same as it used to be, and it's not perfect, but I did see the Observer poll, and almost universally voted the worst match on the show.
Yeah, well, because that's where everybody's head is at these days.
And it was the match that killed the crowd.
Yeah, because of where the crowd's head is at these days. These people don't want professional wrestling. They want a live-action Benny Hill sketch. Now, a lot of people say, well, Cornette's gone out of his mind. That wasn't a great match. I didn't say it was a great match. Actually, I don't even know if I said it was the best match, because I said it was the only match on the show that wasn't egregiously fake and made no fucking sense whatsoever. I didn't say it was that great, but Ogogo can be a star. He's got all the fucking tools, and he is moving around better than he should be for this level of his experience. See Caesar Bonini and half of these other guys. But the match between Cody and Ogogo on the pay-per-view was the only match on that entire show where there was not something stupid, something illogical, something blatantly fake, or something
entertaining.
A complete scrambled egg mess. Well, no, I had to call it as I saw it. There was something else that disqualified every other match on the show, whether it was the stupid rules, the stupid stipulations, or the comedic presentation, or the fucking sloppy work involved. This was the only match that didn't have that. So that's why I said it was the best match on the show by process of elimination, because there was no other good match on the show. Because you can't have a good match with the things that I just described being involved in all of them. This was the only thing on the show that made sense, didn't insult people's intelligence.
I don't agree with you, but let me ask you this. Considering what they did on this show that we're about to talk about, do you still think it was the right idea to have Cody go over?
No, I didn't say. I said if I was Cody, I'd have probably put the guy over on the pay-per-view match. So now they come back and do it now.
Yeah.
Which is backwards.
What the fuck? That's my point.
At this point, Cody could have, if Ogogo had beaten Cody, then Cody could have come back here and beaten QT, and then Ogogo got heat on him afterwards. But they have to do everything backwards. So the point is, in this match, and once again, poor Lee Johnson. Yes, he's a rookie. His work is somewhat shoddy. But you don't have to call him that big shoddy Lee Johnson. Everything he does is shoddy. Oh, shoddy Lee. Fuck, just bury the fucking guy. Anyway, Ogogo did a nice belly-to-belly. I like this guy. I wish he was in a competent, responsible training program and a promotion that would teach him how to psychologically think about wrestling. He would be an excellent prospect.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
There? You know, you way back when we first saw that he was involved with AEW, because he wasn't one of the names announced because no one knew who he was. But when you heard QT Marshall, when we saw him on TV, you were like, oh my God, I remember this guy from Ring of Honor. He was actually pretty good. I have to say, for someone who I've heard a lot of people say is pretty good, and someone who has a training school with, I mean, how many students now in the AEW roster? I mean, it's a direct pipeline. If you want to go to AEW, you go to that school. I mean, let's be honest about it.
Yeah, well, if you're in that school, you're in AEW. It's just their farm system.
He, to me, as someone who's never been a wrestler, other than 2 battle royals for Dennis, but that doesn't count. But I've never been a real wrestler. I've watched a lot of it, but it seems to me that he's too often in the wrong place or doing something that it just looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. Is it just me? I mean, do you ever see that?
Here's the thing. QT in 2011, which was 10 years ago now, was a great prospect. And we were especially interested in him because he was a full-grown adult man in Ring of Honor, and you couldn't come by those even 10 years ago. He's over 6 feet tall. He's over 200 pounds, and he had a lot of potential, and we liked his work, and we liked him as a person. And we brought him in and gave him the robe and God's gift to QT Marshall, a little gimmick, something to jazz him up a little bit, and put him in the middle of the card because that's where we thought, well, let's see if we if something comes out and, he progresses. And then I mentioned, of course, all of the fucking former Ring of Honor fans that thought that it was still a fucking promotion to be filled with 150-pounders doing cheerleading routines, hated it because he didn't do any flips and dives. But he was coming along as a heel and as a talent and as a guy that you could use on the card and potentially have upward mobility. But then he's from Florida originally, and I think he moved back, and we couldn't afford to fly him at the time. So he was in and out. Sometimes he was flying up on his own, but you couldn't do that all the time. So it just didn't work out at that point. But now I see him 10 years later. He's doing dives. He's doing these dives over the top. He's doing cartwheels. Instead of continuing to work and learn as himself, he started doing what the goofy kids were doing and made himself one of the million of those guys. And I'm sorry, and I'm not meaning to knock the guy because I've never had a crossword with him and I like him and we liked him as a talent, but he's the trainer. You mentioned he's the trainer. What the fuck? I'm sorry. He never got the opportunity to work in promotions and at a level where that he could be considered a top guy in a steady, real promotion and learn and work with veterans and etc. So I don't doubt that as a training program and as a coach, he can teach these guys how to do most of the moves safely, which is, your standard amateur class, wrestling school group. Just teach them how to take a flat back bump and don't hurt anybody. But that's amateur class. In OVW, that was before you ever got on TV or even booked at the flea market when you were in the amateur class. Then you start to move up and the more experienced trainers start to take over and you start to learn how to think about wrestling and what to do, not just how to do it, and more personality, et cetera, et cetera. And QT is not experienced in that level of wrestling training. So I'm not saying he should. Yeah, he's much farther along than a lot of these people in the wrestling school. But if they're looking to QT to be Nelson Royal or some legendary Rip Rogers or some legendary trainer that's been everywhere, worked with everybody, and knows how to think about wrestling to be in the right place and to do the right thing at the right time, that's not QT, I don't think. Unless he's gone somewhere in the last 10 years and got a bunch of experience under a mask as another name, and we don't know about it.
So you've noticed it too. It's not just me noticing it.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I booked QT before, and I've had good things to say about him. I didn't say he was goddamn, fucking Carl Gotch or Lou Thez. No, he's a wonderful trainer for a guy when they have a small training program to break guys in. But no, not for advanced national television training programs. A guy that QT was a fan of ought to be teaching that, and maybe all the matches would look different instead of the same. Anyway.
And if it's QT and Cody, then you have no shot.
Well, they even said on TV, Cody didn't come in very often. Oh, yeah, point is. Anyway. And at one point, fucking...
Is that Cody's thing with work? Like, Cody's not here today.
Yeah.
It happens in AEW too. Where's Cody? No one knows.
He's out putting in the work remotely. At one point, poor QT got monkey flipped and he got over-rotated, just landed in a fucking heap. Shoddy Lee disappeared from... That's on these tag matches now. Guys are not even waiting on the apron to make the tag. They take a bump and they roll out on the floor and they sell for 3 or 4 minutes like they've been hit by a fucking VW Beetle bus. There's no need to sell down on the floor when you're in a fucking tag match. Cody got the figure 4, but Ogogo splashed him and broke it up, and then QT hit a cutter on Cody, and JR even called it a shoddy cover for old Shoddy Johnson. Lee Johnson came off the top, and the camera had a close-up of this. So I don't know what it started out to be. because all I saw was the culmination of it. But QT hit a cutter on Cody and covered Cody. And Lee Johnson was going to come off the top and break it up, but Cody had to kick out at 2 because Lee wasn't there yet, because Lee Johnson apparently came off the top and went so far in the air, the 2 count was already ready to be landed. And then Lee landed ass first on both Cody and QT, who were in the pile, and I think landed on Cody's face. Did you see that? What was he trying to do?
I have no idea.
It was just like suddenly you see this close-up shot of these 2 guys, QT covering Cody, and then it was like the roof opened up and a fucking human body dropped on top of them and potatoed both of them.
You think any of those guys could call a match in the ring? Well, I mean, obviously Ogogo can't, and Lee Johnson's just starting, but
yeah.
I mean, that's the thing with Cody. So many of his matches to me seem rehearsed. They seem he is putting the work in. Well,
they are. Every single one of these guys is putting a match together in the back and going over it step by step. That's why all the shit looks fucking so sloppy, because they're trying to do shit that they're supposed to be in position for, but they're not. And they go ahead and do it anyway. I'll get to Red Velvet in a minute. She's lucky to be alive.
I love her.
Well, then you need to send her some fucking money and tell her, go to school and get another line of work, because she does what she did on this show one more time, she'll be a paraplegic. Anyway, then suddenly here comes Solo. Solo, Comarato, Ogogo. Solo comes to the apron to distract the referee, which means the referee turns around and just stands there for however long. I mean, it used to be an art to distract the referee. I got to the point with timing with Tommy Young where I could fucking run down the side of the ring, jump up on the apron, be there for 1 second. He would turn to me and say, get down. I'd jump down, and by the time he turned around, the damage was done. Now the referee just walks over and stands there with the heel talking aimlessly until the heel says, okay, it's time to turn around now. And then but anyway, Cody went for the crossroads, and Ogogo came in and knocked Cody out with a right. Boom, and down he goes, 1, 2, 3. And it wasn't a great-looking punch when they showed it back from 2 different angles. So when you have a boxer that's an inexperienced worker and is not Dick Murdoch or Jerry Lawler or Bobby Eaton by any means when throwing a punch, get the fucking long shot angle from the hard camera and have the announcers go, oh my God, what a shot, and don't show it 3 times. Because then you have time to figure out he didn't hit him at all. But Ogogo saved this mess. Ogogo was the most impressive person in my mind in this fucking match, especially with his level of experience. And then QT cuts the promo, I shocked the world. So instead of putting Ogogo over and then losing to QT, and then beating QT, he beat Ogogo and then put QT over, even though Ogogo did the damage. I don't know, whatever the fuck. Any closing thoughts on that one?
I didn't like it really at all. Got a question about Ogogo for you. Can it be taught? Well, let me ask it a different way. How do you teach someone to throw a good punch for professional wrestling? And if someone can't get it, are there examples of them finally getting it? Can they be taught?
Oh, well, I don't know an example right off the top of my head as to someone who threw a shitty punch and then suddenly turned into a great-looking punch. But yes, that's what I don't understand about today's wrestlers. I'm seeing guys doing 980-degree fucking revolutions and 3 flips off the top rope and all this complicated choreography, and everybody throws a punch like an old washwoman. You can learn to throw a good-looking punch, whether it's the Lawler style or the Bobby Eaton style or the fucking Murdoch style or the Terry Funk style. Figure out which one is most natural for you, the way you want to throw it, whether it's straight or from around the side or with the fucking flat part of the fist or straight with the knuckles, but you've got your hand-eye coordination. And do what I had Bubba do, Boss Man, in the hotel at night. stand in front of the archway that separates your room from the bathroom and throw straight punches to the goddamn door frame. And sooner or later, you will learn to not hit that door frame as hard as you possibly can. Bubba did a little damage to a couple of hotel rooms first. And some guys, who was it? Fuck, I can't remember. Used to tie a string and hang down. And he would throw a punch to where if he touched the string but it didn't move, that was good. But throw it into the pocket. Hear that? That's my neck. Boom, straight punch right to the side of the neck makes that noise. You can do it right in front of a microphone. Boom, I'm hitting my own self in the middle of my house here. Or you can fucking, if you get the slap and coordinated to where you can slap the shoulder but not everybody can see it. Or do Lawler's little trick where you keep your fucking fist loose, where you could stick your finger inside your fist, but outside to the people you can't tell it's not a fist, which softens some of the impact. Plus he's got an artist's hand-eye coordination. Goddamn, I've had punch classes in fucking wrestling school where guys were doing all these complicated athletic things and couldn't throw a fucking punch. And that is the one yardstick that a lot of people are going to look at to say, well, is this guy any kind of fucking badass or not? That's why they've all taken to throwing these stupid, shitty-looking, flippy forearms. And the forearms look like shit. Buddy Landell in the 80s had one of the greatest looking forearms because he drew back and threw the goddamn bony part of the elbow right to the side of your fucking jaw, and you felt it. And it looked good. These things, they're just little flipper pushes that the guys give each other, but then they turn around, turn their back on their opponent, and run and hit the ropes to do something. It's all fucking sissified. Anyway. So, yeah, first thing I'd do is make sure that these guys could throw a punch before they were allowed to fucking do anything else. And then they'd learn how to throw a punch real quick because they want to do all their fun fucking choreography after that.
You know what else? I'll mention it here, but it really applies to everything on the show. So I'll maybe say it again later. They didn't finish anything up at Double or Nothing. Nothing came out of that where, okay, it's over, on to the next thing. Everything out of that is, okay, that's over, more. And I'm not feeling that. So now we have more of the Cody QT feud. I mean, later on, more of the Inner Circle Pinnacle feud.
Well, that's because they didn't have some ultimate score-settling match like, I don't know, a War Games or something between the two teams to settle the score once and for all and move on. If they'd have done that, yeah.